Hello, my fellow readers. Today I'm going to be talking about O Maidens in your Savage season. This is probably one of my favorite series of the year. I flew through this. You can probably go back and see the video where I opened the series, only to then also discover, I thought I bought the whole thing, only to discover that I somehow missed buying the last volume, and I was actually like reading through it when I discovered that I didn't have the last volume, and I had to order it, and so it took a little while for me to get to it, and I'm so glad I got it all, because this is A+ quality work here. This series is so sweet, so charming, so heart-wrenching, so heartwarming, and above all, I think this is very true to life. This definitely is an A+ authentic read, and so, like I said, just one of the best that I've read all year. So what happens in O Maidens in your Savage season? The series focuses on the literature club in high school, and Kazusa here is a first-year student, and at her first meeting of the literature club, where they just so happen to read kind of saucy, but it's also like historical, like famous works. A question gets posed that is, what's the one thing you want to do before you die? And, you know, Kazusa's kind of thinking about it. And meanwhile, another club member just blurts out sex. And everybody's suddenly like, what? And it becomes really this whole main background push. I mean, in the way of making people realize suddenly, like, their interactions with the opposite sex or even the same sex and how they actually feel, how they're processing things, jealousy, feelings, everything just comes forward from that one instance. When the girls are caught, like, discussing things, they get into a bit of trouble, but they try to come up with a code word for sex, and like they're having this big long discussion and debate about it. It ends up being settled by Kazusa sort of blurting out. This was not like her offering suggestions, but she just sort of blurts out, and the whole club picks it up, SE cross. And so that's suddenly their code word for it, SE cross. And all these ridiculous shenanigans also ensue, but it's like the cringeworthy, heart-wrenching shenanigans of youth. Like, it's definitely such a strong coming-of-age narrative that I think people will relate to. Like, there's just no way that if you are either going through it or if you've already experienced your teen years and that whole development and suddenly coming to understand yourself, that's what's in here. And so, yeah, it's relatable to pretty much anybody who's alive, because I think in many ways, like, everybody comes to understand this existence in the world, and this presence during those developmental years. And then, of course, this series takes in that messy complication of relationships and developing feelings for people, and whether those relationships actually do develop into a relationship between the people or develop into there's nowhere to go with those feelings because it's not reciprocated. And so each of the girls in the literature club do get their own focus. So it's not just about Kazusa, although I'll say that she's really, her narrative does kind of go throughout the whole series. I mean, all of them do, but like hers is a pretty main piece within all of the other stories. but everyone gets their piece and their focus and are equally important to the whole overall series. For Kazusa, it is discovering that she does actually have feelings for her childhood friend, who I believe was also her neighbor. They had been teased, throughout childhood about the whole thing, but then she does come to realize that, you know what, I do actually have feelings for him, and I don't know what to do now. It's that first feeling of attraction and not knowing where to go with it or how to go about expressing it, or, kind of judging, does the other person feel the same? That's that freshness that you'll get with Kazusa's story. There are bits that go beyond that too, like what do you do if your friend has a crush on the same person that you have a crush on, and just what are these steps? And because this is a time where relationships can get destroyed because of all these heightened emotions. I didn't write down everybody else's names, and I can't remember them all, so I'm sorry. But we also have a young novelist who's one of the literature club members, and she's told that she needs to spice things up in her writing, and that they're really going for like honest, raw, like young, more like sexual development things, which is disturbing on a lot of levels, because you shouldn't be forcing your young writers to exploit themselves for... Anyway, not going to get into that discussion. So she, of course, has trouble writing about these experiences because she's never had said experiences. So even though her publisher, her editor, want her to go there, she doesn't know how because she's never had it. And so she seeks kind of ways to have these experiences, and she actually has an online friend that she wants to meet up with, and there's a whole story there, and it's really good, but I won't get into it. There's also our nice uptight leader of the group, who really wanted nothing to do with relationships or sex in general. Like, she just didn't want anything to do with it, only to get flirted with by one of the boys in her class that is actually really nice. Like, he's not making a joke out of it. He's not just doing it, like, he actually is intrigued by her and finds her pretty. And so for her, it's all about this sudden, hey, maybe I do have feelings or wants, and kind of coming to accept that and explore it. We have the character who has feelings for her friend's crush / boyfriend. And how do you process that, and how do you deal with it? And does she have a right to make a move on him, even though he's with her friend, or looks to be getting with her friend? And what does that mean for her friendship? What does that mean for her relationship with this boy? And you also have a character that begins to realize that she has feelings for her friend, who is also a girl. And what does she do with that? Will she be accepted or rejected? Is she allowed to express her feelings? And how does she cope if she's either rejected or accepted? And I will say some of the plot lines aren't 100% wrapped up, but I think that also fits, because not everything is neatly tied with a bow. At the end of, a year in your high school life, there are things that might continue to progress and happen as you age. In fact, usually that's what happens. And so, yeah, I love it. It was messy and complicated, but so true to life. Is beautiful. I enjoyed the artwork. I loved the characters. I loved feeling that slight frustration, but also just emotion. I loved getting to feel along with the characters. It's just great. And I think that that's what I really enjoy about fiction and literature is, those authentic characters that just seem like you are following like real people as they go about their life, and you can relate to it so authentically. And yeah, it just made this so great. And so I will say, if you're looking for a good authentic read that really is relationship fiction, that emotion, that coming of age story, Oh Maidens in Your Savage Season is 100% recommended, and you will like this. There is an anime adaptation of this. I have not seen it yet, but I have to because I really enjoyed this. There's a lot of like anime I haven't gotten to yet, and a lot that have been coming from good manga, and I just haven't gotten into it at this point. But I do want this one because this was so good, and I'd love to see how they acted out the complex characters and stuff that was happening. And yeah, I definitely want to. I'm just going to say that the story for this was done by Mari Okada, famous for Anohana. So yeah, I should say the artist as well is Nao Emoto, the artist behind Forget Me Not. So again, I recommend this. It's so good. I think it was 8 volumes. I think it was 8. No, like, am I wrong? Pretty sure it was 8. I could be wrong. Don't do what I did. Make sure that you've picked up the final volume. So I'm like, was it 8 or 9? Make sure you pick up the final volume. Get all of them at once because you're going to fly through them. That's what I did. Like, I literally could not put this series down. I went from one volume to the next, to the next, to the next, and I just couldn't stop reading it. I think I read it on like a Saturday, so I just flew through like the whole thing except for the final volume because I realized I hadn't picked it up. But it was so good. I could not stop reading this. It's so good. I should just stop saying it's so good because now you know. And that's all for this video. Until next time, bye.